How's your week going so far? My name is Alicia.
I'm Nicole.
Let's take a little time away from the hustle and bustle of adulting and let's indulge our curiosities just for a bit and talk about killers, psychos, and the unexplained.
Today we are venturing to Maine to talk about Constance Fisher and Richard Edward Steves.
Welcome to Maine, where Richard Edward Steves murdered 5 people across 3 different states. He was acquitted on reasons of insanity and would spend over 10 years in mental hospitals before being released back into society to, you guessed it, murder again.
Shocker.
Shocker. Richard was born in Waterville, Maine on February 1st, 1942. When he was just 5 years old, he actually witnessed his father's suicide. And then shortly after that, his mother abandoned him at an orphanage. He spent his childhood, per Richard, being sexually abused, which is what fueled his anger. Dropping out of school in 8th grade, he began committing crimes, spending his adolescent years in and out of reformatories. So I would say so far he's had a pretty rough go at life. Watching your father commit suicide in front, your father's suicide, your mom abandoning you to people that are basically just molesting you. Great. Well, moving on. Into adulthood, Richard would continue down the same road, committing crimes and spending his life in and out of jail. He was pretty aggressive and would often threaten guards and other inmates with either bodily harm or killing them. Doesn't really seem like he's into making friends, huh? He was released from one of these stints in jail in 1965, and just 5 months later, on June 13th, 1965, Richard would attack an 83-year-old man, Harry Staples, in North Berwick, Maine. Richard actually beat poor Harry basically an inch from his own life with his own cane. He was rushed to a hospital and spent 2 weeks in an intensive care unit. However, poor Harry didn't make it. Investigators did their thing and interviewed many suspects, but no one was able to be charged yet. Then on June 19th, 1965, just a few days later, 70-year-old Ralph Mace was found in his Rochester, New Hampshire home, stabbed 6 times and left for dead. When he was found, he was still clinging to life, but he did end up passing away later that same day. Again, investigators are asking the questions, interviewing all the suspects, still empty-handed. On August 14th, 1965, now this is 2 months later, 73-year-old Lorenzo Troyer was beaten unconscious in his Augusta, Maine cabin. He was found by a friend and rushed to a hospital. However, he did end up passing away the next day. Now, at this point, police have to be in full force. They have to be profiling and trying to figure out what's happening. These are all older men, all being attacked in their own homes, brutally, not completely murdered, but pretty much left for dead, all 3 of them. Like an inch from their life,
Yeah.
2 were in Maine and 1 was in New Hampshire, all relatively close. So I'm sure folks in those areas also had to be terrified. Not even in your own home are you safe, right? But even with investigators going through the pieces, they're not able to put them together yet. In January of 1966, Richard was on his way to Ohio. Not sure if he was trying to get away from the area so he wouldn't be discovered or what, but he was going to Ohio. However, his car breaks down and he meets Louis Geffert, who was 84, and his grandson, Francis, who was 35. They took him in and were just trying to be friendly, helping him out. Well, he bludgeoned both to death and stole
Oh.
the car and drove it back to New Hampshire. Okay, so by the time he drove to Ohio and was on his way back, investigators must have had a moment because they were able to put all the pieces together. Because now Richard was wanted on 3 counts of murder. He ended up being arrested at a restaurant in New Hampshire in possession of the car that he had stole from Francis. So he was taken into the police station and charged with Francis and his grandfather Lewis's and Ralph Mace's murders. So 3 charges so far. Not the 2, Harry and Lorenzo, in Maine yet, but it's a start. While on trial in New Hampshire, Richard admitted guilt to the murders, but said he wasn't guilty due to insanity. The trial stopped. Richard was acquitted on that reason of insanity.
Wait, what?
He was transferred. Yes, he said, I'm not guilty for reasons of insanity. And the judge said, oh, okay, stop the trial, acquitted him. Reasons of insanity. He was transferred to the Concord Mental Hospital after being in a mental institution in New Hampshire and Ohio. The doctor so this is like he's going from New Hampshire, and then they transferred him over to Ohio. And then the doctor in 1980 said that Richard's all better. He's no longer a threat. So it took a couple of years, but in 1983, Ohio prosecutors decided, you know what, we're not going to prosecute Richard for the actual murders. Like, no trial. Instead, they just ended up sentencing him to 3 to 7 years in prison and calling it good.
I didn't even know you could be sentenced
Yep.
without a trial. What the fuck is happening?
No, we're not going to go through all that. 3 to 7 years sounds good. Let's do that.
Okay.
1 year later, in 1984, Richard gets paroled and sent to live with his brother in Unity, Maine. And you'll never guess what happened next.
Killed his brother.
No. Well,
Oh,
that would have been good, right? No, that's not what happened.
I guess
In
at
April,
least he doesn't kill his brother.
I know, the brother lives. Uh, in April 1985, Richard broke into the mobile home of 69-year-old Russell Bailey, attacked him, striking him in the head with a blunt object, like a club, multiple times, and he killed him. His body was found by a neighbor on April 29th, 1985. Witnesses at this time came forward and said they had seen Richard's truck in Russell's driveway the day of the murder. So Richard was brought in to the station, and he gave several different statements, like Russell owed me $1,000 for some sexual favors, or someone else killed him, or I had this really vivid dream. It was like a memory that I did it. Just so many different scenarios. I'm not sure if he just couldn't keep his facts straight, or maybe he was trying to act erratically since he was already deemed incompetent before, thinking maybe he could say I'm insane again. I'm not really sure, but it didn't work this time. And Richard would be prosecuted for not only Russell's murder, but also the murder of Harold Stapes, who was Richard's first victim. While awaiting trial, Richard tried to commit suicide a couple of times, I guess. Insanity wasn't used as a defense this time. Instead, his lawyer went with Richard was innocent and was being framed by the real killer. In the
What?
end, yeah, he was being framed by the real killer.
Oh my God. Okay.
In the end, Richard was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. And he remains imprisoned at Maine State Prison and was, I guess, diagnosed with Parkinson's disease recently or at some point, putting this awful case to an end.
Whew.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that happened that I'm like, what the?
Yeah. That is a lot. So you kill 2 people, say I'm insane, you take off. What was that? A grandson and his grandfather, and then the guy, I'm crazy. Okay, no worries. 3 to 7 years. That's cool. 1 year later, you're out doing it again. So now they're gonna bring victim number one, whatever happened to Lorenzo. Poor Lorenzo. No one even brought him up. But yeah.
I, okay. Well, Constance Margaret Cyrus was born March 26, 1929 in Oakland, Maine. Her birth parents abandoned her, and the Cyrus family adopted her. In 1946, 17-year-old Constance married 24-year-old Carl Marion Fisher. They had 3 kids together: Richard, Daniel, and Deborah Kay. During the early years, she started to show signs of anxiety and depression. She also tried to commit suicide one time. On March 8th, 1954, Carl came home and the door was locked. Now, people didn't lock their doors back then. So if you're younger and you're listening to this, people did not lock their doors. So he was like, probably didn't even have a house key, was probably like, what the heck is happening? So he panicked and went over to a neighbor's house, called the doctor who had been treating his wife, and he came over and they broke the door down. Police haven't even been called yet. Why would you not call the police? Anyways,
He tried, his wife already has an issue, and he's like, okay, the doctor's going to do better. I don't want to get her in trouble. I just want to find out what's going on.
Carl went into the bedroom and found the two youngest tucked into bed, and in the bathroom found the oldest one drowned in the bathtub. But he couldn't find his wife. So he called authorities, and they found her underneath the bed, unconscious from drinking an entire bottle of shampoo.
Ugh.
I'm sorry. You did what to try to kill yourself? Now,
Drink
I don't
food.
know if that would kill you, but
Probably
like
a bad diarrhea. That's about what that would do.
the whole bottle?
Yeah.
Next to her was a note saying she drowned the kids to save them from evil and that God had ordered it. So she was arrested and charged with murder. A forensic psychiatrist. No, let's try that again. A forensic psychiatric examiner concluded that Constance was suffering from paranoid schizophrenia and was unable to stand trial. Okay. So she was instead admitted to a state hospital for treatment. I don't know what kind of treatments they did back then, but that's where she was sent to. They gave Fisher insulin injections and high doses of hormones, which would end up having her, it would cause her to have a bunch of seizures while she was there. I'm sorry, you gave her what for what? Now,
And
up until recently, they thought almost all female problems were hormonal related,
I mean,
and
still do though.
they
Not
still
not
think a lot of things are, yes.
not much has changed.
They, I mean, some stuff has. Like, your husband can't call and get you committed because you're having a mood swing from your period, right? They used to be able to do that type of stuff and get you locked up. Like, get a lobotomy against your will and stuff. So, thankfully, they can't do that. But instead, they give her a bunch of medication and cause her to have a bunch of seizures. Okay, let's do that to someone who's schizophrenic. That sounds like a good idea. So in 1955, her husband tried to get her released. This is only a year later, by the way. Since she was improving, however, the hospital was like, no, you can't have her. It's like, yeah, she's improving, but you can't have her. We're keeping your wife. So I don't know if the hospital wanted to keep her to keep doing experiments on her, but also, why would you want to bring her home? She just murdered all your kids.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
However, in 1959, they did release her to her husband due to a national effort to deinstitutionalize mental patients. The couple moved to a new home, and Carl had built this home while she was away. And so they moved into this new home, and they had three more kids: Kathleen Louise, Michael John, and Natalie Rose.
You let her produce again intentionally?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. More than once. I know, but what birth control was around at that time, I believe.
No, but he did it like he got her
I
out,
know.
built that house for her, and he's like, let's have more babies. Let's redo this. Start again.
Well, I don't really know how it was explained to him, but it kind of sounds like they're like, your wife has schizophrenia. None of it was her fault. We're sorry we didn't catch it. Like, because she was already suffering from anxiety and depression. She was seeing a psychiatrist already, remember? So I don't know
I
if that's how they talked him into, like, she's okay now. Like, we're releasing her because she's behaving herself.
hmm.
On June 30th, 1966, Carl came home from work to find 9-month-old Natalie drowned in the bathtub. He called the police, who came and found the other two kids tucked in bed, and Fisher was also tucked in bed, and she had taken a whole bottle of pills. Newspapers called it a duplication of tragedy. She literally did the same thing over again.
Well, she took pills instead of shampoo this time.
True.
The shampoo didn't work.
Well, yeah, I don't know why she thought the shampoo was gonna work. Drano, maybe, but not shampoo.
Nah, she didn't know better.
True. Constance was rushed to the hospital and they saved her life.
Oh,
Authorities sought to charge her with murder. During the arraignment, she was held without bail. They determined through an examination she was competent to stand trial. So her defense got her deemed mentally insane, and in the end, she was sent to a state hospital for her natural life. So, like, now they're saying, we're going to send you away and you can't ever come out. I don't know why that didn't happen the first time, but that's what they're saying the second time.
well, like you said, maybe they didn't understand it fully, or they thought,
I don't know what they thought.
uh,
Mental health is like,
it's
they're still, yeah, they still don't do a good job with mental health. They're better, right? Like, it's gotten better, but I don't, there's still so much they don't know, and they experiment on people too much, and like, they still do that crap.
yeah,
We have a long ways to go with mental health. However, Constance was reportedly causing no problems, and she behaved well towards the staff, and everyone loved her because she was super polite and friendly, and like probably not zombie-ish like the rest of their patients, right? On October 1st, 1973, this changed because her husband stopped visiting, citing grief it caused. He was like, I just can't come visit her anymore. I'm so sad. Like, she killed all of our kids. I can't fix her. Like, she's unfixable. He must have been so in love with her, is all I can think.
yeah.
She did manage to escape, prompting a search for her. And October 9th, her drowned body was found in a river, like not far from the facility. Carl buried her with her three kids. Carl buried her where he had buried all the other kids. So it was like this family plot. All six kids were buried there. He buried his wife there too. And then when he died in 1990, he was also buried there. So they're all buried together, one big, giant, happy, drowned family.
That's so unfortunate.
Disastrous. For one, that he was so in love with her that he didn't just move on the first time. And for two, to like release her the first time?
Like you said, they didn't understand. Maybe like they were telling him like she's better now, it'll be okay. It was just she was overwhelmed and acted out, and we got her on these good meds now, or what? However they put it, who
Or I don't know.
knows? They don't know either. Clearly. Okay, so now let's finish this off with a little of the unexplained. Maine's cryptic creature is the specter moose. This legendary creature resides in the forests of Maine. It's said to be a gigantic white moose that's about 10 to 15 feet tall and weighs nearly 2,500 pounds. That's a big boy.
10 to 15 feet tall.
2,500 pounds.
That's like Bigfoot size, right?
Yeah, big moose. What a big
Yeah,
moose.
yeah.
Also, it has huge antlers that stretch 10 to 12 feet, with some claiming up to 22 points on each antler. Now, girl, this sent me on a whole Google day. Okay, so I'm learning all about mooses now. Okay, so apparently their antlers are normally about 55 to 70 inches long, and a moose's antlers, they start off with like 2 to 3 points, and the number and size grow with each season. So 22 points. I was like, he was an old dude, man. He's been around.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So he's quite old, and he is because this big daddy has been eluding hunters, showcases, or balls since 1891.
Holy crap.
Yes, but which may be a good thing since it's associated with bad luck, and it's said that it appears in towns before bad things happen. Have you ever heard of this spectacular specter moose? Let us know. We are interested.
That was that was a tongue twister.
It was fun though.
Well, we would like to thank you for joining us in our discoveries of Maine this week. Please join us next week while we travel to Maryland. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss our adventures next week into killers, psychos, and the unexplained.
Bye bye.
Bye!